As we mentioned, President Trump has agreed to sit down for an interview with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan this week. The interview will air Sunday morning on Face the Nation, with parts airing later in the day before Super Bowl coverage on CBS. Presidents have given interviews to networks hosting the big game since 2004. That's when Jim Nantz spoke to George W. Bush. Last year, President Trump was unable to reach an agreement for an interview with his former network, NBC. The year before, he sat down with Bill O'Reilly on Fox. According to our CBS News White House correspondent Mark Knoller, Sunday will be the president's fifth interview on CBS, bringing it even with the NBC family of networks. No other network has come close to Fox's 44 interviews with the president. Mr. Trump has had a friendly relationship with the network, often tweeting praise for their anchors and correspondents until recently. The president criticized two Fox News reporters over their coverage of the shutdown. He said John Roberts and Jillian Turner, and I'm quoting here, have even less understanding of the wall negotiations than the folks at fake news, CNN and NBC. Joining me now, David Folkenflik. He's NPR media correspondent. He joins us now on set. So, David, were you surprised when you saw the president's tweet about Fox News?
You know, for a moment, the president obviously has a symbiotic relationship with the Fox News channel, unlike any we've seen between president and outlet in the modern era. And at the same time, the president's idea of loyalty is not about symbiosis. It's about one way, and it's uniformity. If somebody is saying something that seems to be at odds with where he's coming from or what he's presenting to the public, he'll often pound them. In this case, I think he was surprised to hear reporters on Fox essentially doing their jobs and trying to enlighten viewers about the state of play. And the state of play for the president is tough right now. And he's hearing that from both correspondents who are doing reporting, and he's hearing that from some conservative voices, yes, even on Fox News.
Yeah. You know, I'm curious how Fox News is responding to all of this.
Well, you've seen a number of journalists step forward from Fox and say, you know, don't attack these folks. These folks are doing their job. They're doing the First Amendment. They're doing everything that everybody else, the rest of the press has been doing since Trump emerged, targeting the press as one of his, main opponents. That is, they're standing up for their reporter colleagues and saying this is what they do, which is what reporters have done at other outlets all along. So you're seeing Fox in some ways, I don't think they're being radicalized by this, but they're taking a stand and saying, no, Mr. President, don't attack our guys. Our guys are the real journalists.
Full disclosure, I got my start at Fox News working as a correspondent in Baghdad and during the Iraq War. But I'm just curious, even when you look back at that time and Fox News' Roger Ailes' connection with the George W. Bush administration, you look at this administration, you've got Heather Nauert there, you've got Bill Shine, the director of communications who actually ran Fox News, John Bolton, who I covered when he was, UN ambassador at one point.
And Sarah Sanders' father had a show on Fox News for quite a while.
A very long time and a very close relationship. So
Ben Carson. The list is endless. You could go on all day.
The list is absolutely endless. But has there ever been an administration this closely tied with figures from the Fox News channel?
Oh, there's nothing even close. I mean, what you've seen with Fox over the years since its start in 1996 is a continued purity, a continued purification and distillation of the idea that they are anchored in a single party and anchored within a specific locus in the party. Rupert Murdoch decided he doesn't have particularly great respect for President Trump or then candidate Trump, but he decided to go all in on Trump. He thought he was the best chance to have somebody in the Oval Office who would take his calls and take his priorities as seriously as he's always wanted.
There was another story I want to cover about NBC and Tom Brokaw, former nightly news anchor. I want to play a clip for you about some comments that Brokaw had, which he has now apologized for.
And a lot of this we don't want to talk about, but the fact is, on the Republican side, a lot of people see the rise of an extraordinary important new constituency in American politics, Hispanics, who will come here and all be Democrats. Also, I hear when I push people a little harder, I don't know whether I want brown grandbabies. I mean, that's also a part of it. It's the intermarriage that is going on and the cultures that are conflicting with each other. I also happen to believe that the Hispanics should work harder at assimilation. That's one of the things I've been saying for a long time. That they ought not to be just codified in their communities, but make sure that all of their kids are learning to speak English and that they feel comfortable in the communities. And that's going to take outreach on both sides, frankly.
And David, tell us about the backlash on this.
Oh, it was fierce and it was pretty much immediate. I mean, it's hard to imagine how you could pack so many problematic things into such a tight little commentary on Meet the Press. And I don't think we have to denigrate Tom Brokaw's motives here or his impulses here, but there were a number of statements in there that are clearly difficult to discern. He said that, all Latinos coming here would be Democrats. that's not the case. It's much less uniformity than, say, under of African Americans. He said that the children of immigrants and immigrant communities don't assimilate. Not the case. There's, I think, something like most recent surveys suggested almost 9 in 10 children of Latino or Hispanic immigrants to this country speak English fluently. There's the idea that that's the only way in which you define Americanism is by speaking English, which a lot of people would contest. And there's also the very question of the brown babies, the idea that if you're talking to Americans, their concern is having brown babies, as though people of color aren't themselves innately American. And I think there's a confluence, a real backlash among journalists, among people of color. You saw this among the one organization of many, the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, really pushed back, and NBC took its sweet time in responding to that.
Why do you think that was, that NBC took a while to respond?
Tom Brokaw was its defining anchor for over 2 decades. Really, one of its key figures. He's in his, shall we say, twilight years. He's comes on the air as a senior correspondent, as a special analyst at times, and I think they want to honor the work he's done for the network. As he's pointed out, he's covered the civil rights movement in his early days in Atlanta. He covered Cesar Chavez in California in the 60s, early 70s, and that growing civil rights and labor movement there. And yet, one of my colleagues, Lulu Garcia Navarro, said something so sharp where she said, people lament about the fact that there's been a breakdown of these major news organizations that once unified us and spoke to us. And yet, in some ways, that fracturing was necessary to make sure other voices were heard and to make sure there was a check on the actual voices of this. Tom Brokaw at one time was one of really 3 voices heard at night. But if this had been reflected as this is what America thinks, maybe Americans would have thought of that instead of the pushback we heard in the last 48 hours.
NPR media correspondent David Folkenflik, so grateful you could join us, David. Thank you so much.